What do you think of political dynasties in Sri Lanka? Do you think people in Sri Lanka keep voting for the same family because they have no faith in the opposition?
People vote from their hearts, they do not use their minds. So sometimes it's very easy to trick people. When you have a massive media coverage and etc., it's very easy to promote something that is not true. We are not centered to a family, and our party or our thinking revolves around giving equal opportunity to everyone.
Do you think that the UNP and SJB should join to form a more impactful opposition?
Yeah, I would personally, it's my personal opinion, I would like to see UNP and us working together, because
When you go for a job interview, a degree is a basic requirement. But here in Parliament, people who lead the country, there are so many who don't even have their O levels. I mean, do you want to change the system? Do you think it should be changed?
one reason why people do not now admire, or people do not respect politicians, is because they see Parliament as a joke, because of the level of arguments or level of intellectual capacities these particular MPs possess. As a party, how we can do it is, we need to set a standard that they need to have some basic education moving forward.
Welcome everyone, you're watching a new episode of Conversations, and in today's episode I will be in conversation with Member of Parliament and the former Sports Minister Harin Fernando. Welcome.
Hi, thanks.
Thank you for being a part of this conversation. Now getting straight to it. There are many challenges that the people of Sri Lanka face currently. There's a rising cost of living and inflation has hit record levels. So what I'd like to know is, if the opposition was in power, what would they have done differently?
So it's just not a straight off answer, I would say, but it's quite a complicated situation we are in right now. So this, I would say, goes back to the 73 years of after our independence, how the politicians have reacted and how their relationships abroad have been, and how everything has turned out to be. If we were in power, if you ask me directly, what would we do differently, is that number one is our international relationships with the world and with the other organizations should be much stronger and has a focus on some development as well. So I would say it's not just a straight off answer. As I said again, it should be a very sorted out plan, as in the economy should be run in a way with a policy. Right now, why Sri Lanka is going down is we do not have a national policy. We decide, the politicians keep changing and the policy keeps changing. So therefore, there's no real focus on what we want to do as a country. So I think first and foremost, as SJB, we need to put up a national policy when it comes to foreign relations, when it comes to our trade relationships, etc. So these are how SJB will be different to the current government, and we would not be cornered just to Chinese or the Indians, but has a very open-minded, liberal thinking in our ways of dealing with. So, if you come into power, there's so much a debt that the country has to pay. So there should be different relationships, how you manage the debt. So those are what we will concentrate on. I think Sri Lankans also need development while we go through this restructuring process. So a massive restructure has to be done, I would say, within education, within health, and the way we deal with the world. So SJB, I think, has proven people like Harsha De Silva, Iran, Kabir are the focus, the people who focus on the economy. So on the development, we have different people in our party. So SJB is not centered around a family or just with few countries, but we would like to be different and embrace the entire world in restructuring Sri Lanka.
And when you just mentioned family, it reminds me of the next question. What do you think of political dynasties in Sri Lanka? Do you think people in Sri Lanka keep voting for the same family because they have no faith in the opposition?
Not really. I think it's time to time. Sri Lankans are still in a mentality of that we are under some rule, like a monarchy. So I would say the place where we are wrong is that our media, people vote from their hearts. They do not use their minds. So sometimes it's very easy to trick people. When you have a massive media coverage and etc., it's very easy to promote something that is not true. So therefore, I would say I would like to see Sri Lanka be different. And I'm now 41 years old, but I would rather see myself out of politics by 60 because that's a retirement age. There should be avenues for anybody's child to come into politics. So that should open up. It should not be based on family. So I think we come from UNP. SJB is more on those lines and more center right policy. And I would like to think that we are the only party who was able to bring Ranasinghe Premadas, who was from not from a very high profile family, but became a president of the country. And even if you look at people like we've got as our candidate Sarath Fonseca, who is a military man, we are not centered to a family, and our party or our thinking is revolves around giving equal opportunity to everyone.
Why did you leave the UNP?
Well, that is a very sad situation at that particular point. See, I mean, I still think that I am a UMP, and I still think that my roots are from UNP, and I admire that party to the greatest extent. But there's one, I mean, I was treated very well while I was at the government. I had 4 ministries. I had foreign employment, sports, telecom, and digital infrastructure. RW, my former leader, really had a lot of faith in me and built me up to that level. But unfortunately, we felt that UNP again did not want to leave leadership. So, I mean, there was no way to oust a leader or make him a senior leader and get the juniors to come through. So, I mean, even if that happened, and if we were, I mean, even about the party corruption, there were a few corruption issues inside the party, but how the leader handled it was something that we felt we had to go and answer to people, and that was not very comfortable for us. So I think we tried our level best. We spoke to our leader. We wanted him to be a like a patron of the party, but just have a way of others coming through. Even at SJB, I have to say, I'm somebody who keeps fighting that you can't have the same leader. So you can face 2 elections maximum, but then you have to give it your party card to vote who is the next leader. It should be a very democratic process. You see in US, that's how they do it. Biden can't just be the leader of that party and just contest. They have a system where the primaries will focus on who is the next leader. So that is, then you have a person, even old or young, could be the leader of that party. In our parties, it's the same old person because the constitutions don't allow us to change him. It's just suited for the leader to stay in power. So it was a difficult decision. We decided it's time because people were expecting something new. I think SJB is that. SJB is we call it a Balavega. It's like a whole new movement where anybody can join. And the leader is Ajit Premadas, and we feel that he's young relatively to the politicians who are above 75, who is the president and the prime minister, or the main ministries are done by people who are over 75. I am not disrespecting the old, but what I'm saying is the younger thinking is needed for us to get out of this rut.
So, do you think that the UNP and SJB should join to form a more impactful opposition? What are your views?
So right now, if you talk about an opposition, there's only one person in parliament, that's Ranil Wickremesinghe. So, I mean, joining with UNP doesn't make that much of an impact. But we would like to see, I would personally, it's my personal opinion, I would like to see UNP and us working together because we are more or less the UNP, and we formed this movement because we didn't want to take the entire mud on us, and we wanted to be separate from the UNP lot who were corrupted or who people did not like. So we wanted it to have a moment where we can change people and new people can come in, and that's what we were looking at. And the opportunities will come through. So I happen to be lucky to be able to contest in UNP. I did not have a family background from Vattala side, but I mean, there are so many people like me who can reach to this pinnacle without having a family background. So that's what we want to see within our party. So I hope UNP can join us, but with a very open mind. I would say.
So I was reading an article recently where it was stated that a SJB working committee member had said that the doors of the SJB would remain closed to the UNP as long as the former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe remains its party leader.
Who has said this?
So this was said by Rehan Javik.
Okay, so he's one of my very good friends. I mean, I really am very close to him, but I would not agree on that particular fact because right now we are a different party and we need to form a common platform.
Right.
Right now, I would like to see not only UMP, I would like to see all the other parties in the opposition joining on a common platform and fight for this new policy that I'm talking about. The country needs a new policy about our foreign policies, about our development strategies, health policy, education policy. There's a lot to do. I mean, if you really look at it, I've gone through a big surgery in my life recently, and I know how difficult it is for a normal person, even though we talk about free health, how difficult to come through the system and do that surgery, which will take at least about 6 to 8 months. And if he's a breadwinner in a family, that's the end of the road for that family. So
Right.
we need to right now focus on lots of those kind of critical issues. Sri Lanka is a beautiful place, so much of assets, and unfortunately we have not. We are still holding on to the 40 after the independence. What we had is what we are holding on. We have not improvised it. If you talk about education, if a child fails O levels, just because he fails maths, he cannot proceed for A levels. I keep saying this all the time. 600,000 people do O levels per year, and only 200,000 get selected to go for advanced levels. So 400,000 young children gets out of the system, and that's why we have lots of unemployment. We do not have a vocational training program. As you know, a carpenter gets paid more than a bank manager, to be honest. But how have we categorized a carpenter, mason, basket, so this is the concepts has to change. If you were abroad, that's one of the best leading jobs, and people are treated equally. So the system has to change, and lots of people expected Gotabaya Rajapaksa to do the system change, but it didn't happen. It got worse. So I think it's time now that we really put our policy right as a country. Let it be UNP, let it be JVP, let it be TNA, let it be any other party, but set a common platform. Enough is enough. People hate all 225 politicians. So I think it's time that we think new.
When talking about politicians, many people in Sri Lanka are disappointed with the standards of many politicians, I would say. Some don't even have their O levels. Now, when you go for a job interview, a degree is a basic requirement. But here in Parliament, people who lead the country, there are so many who don't even have their O levels. I mean, do you want to change the system? Do you think it should be changed?
Of course, I think basic education. One reason why people do not now admire or people do not respect politicians is because they see parliament as a joke because
Right.
of the level of arguments
Yeah.
or level of intellectual capacities these particular MPs possess. So they have a bit of a correct idea to criticize all politicians the same manner. But I find the younger generation of politicians basically have at least a degree in somehow. And as a party, how we can do it is we need to set a standard that they need to have some basic education moving forward. Even if they have not, I mean, let's say the older generation may not have had, but the younger generation had all the opportunities. But having said that, I keep saying we need to change the political system because, sorry, the education system, because the education system is completely wrong in Sri Lanka. So a child who's not good in maths or in Sinhala, if he fails, that does not let him stop his education from there. He should be pushed for 13 years of compulsory education, which Ranil Wickremesinghe, I admire him for that, who did it, and he wanted to push it. So, I mean, a child's childhood, which is 16, is a time where your hormones change. You have all the kind of thinking coming into place. So we need to guide them into the correct path, and I think that we have missed that plot. So basically, education is a must, and even for political parties. So for people to gain that respect, I think it would be good that everybody has something basic education. Education alone does not make you
Absolutely.
the right person, but there should be a balance. There should
But
be a
it's a
balance in
basic requirement, I
basic
feel.
requirement. At least just to start into contesting elections. So at least the generation coming forward will know if he wants to be a politician, he has to be basically even educated.
And when you contest elections, the more money you spend, the greater chance you have of winning.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate because of the PR system. The proportional representation system overpowers the electoral system that we had. So the guy who has money, if his seat is big with more votes, he can easily come through. So I think we wanted to do a change on electoral reforms under our last regime, where there was a mixed system of PR and first past the post system. I think that could have been the ideal scenario because that helps us a lot to mitigate this whole money and corruption inside politics or an election campaign. And also declaration of assets like abroad
Right.
is a must, and we should allow a transparent way of getting donor supports for election, and it should be transparent. Then how much you spend is transparent. That way, I think that's a very advanced level where in US and etc. that has. But at least we can start with the electoral reforms where it's a mixed system, PR and first past the post system. Will solve the issue for the moment, I would feel, and anybody could contest, and we also know that our Sri Lankan parliament is very minimum with women representation. So
Yeah.
there should be a way with the electoral reforms to get more women in parliament, as since we have more than 52% of women in the country living and only 13 people representing them.
And when you do contest again, will it be from the Badulla district?
No, so
I think this is a question that many have.
Yeah, so now I changed. I've taken over Vattala, which is Gampaha district. So Gampaha district is the biggest water base in Sri Lanka. So I would have contested in Badulla and I know I would win. So every election that I contested, I got more. I started from 39,000, then 49,000, went up to 173,000 and to 200,000. To be honest, it's a political game, so I knew that we were losing the last election. My votes would come down, decrease a lot. So I was even thinking, because I really love Badul, I think it's a place that built me. But if you're politically to go far, and since I have lot of work within the party, I have a lot of responsibilities within the party as a deputy chairman and the head of operations. I thought it was more easier for me to be in a central location because I was born in Vattala. So I decided to move to Gampaha district because it has 1.7 million votes, whereas in Badulla you have only 600,000 votes, registered votes. So Sajid also did the same thing. He had only 300,000 votes in Hambantota. He moved to Colombo, which was 1.6, and I moved from 600,000 to 1.7. So we reach a bigger population, and then we thought coming into these two districts will have a big impact. So that was one of the reasons. But I still have my house, I still have my office in Badulla, and I'm ever so grateful to Badulla people. And lots of people criticize me saying I came through the national list, but I had a strategy of why I did that. And one day people will know what my thinking was. And I believe that I haven't forgotten the people who brought me to power. And I think if I am in a higher place, I would first support the Badulla district people who are suffering with many financial and opportunities issues. So I thought I had to be in Colombo. I will have my base in there. It's not just contesting. I thought I didn't want to be a mere politician just to take the vote and walk away. But time will tell. I will do a lot more for Badulla than even Colombo because the patterns are different. Gampaha district is a more broad-minded, very digital savvy. To Badulla was very domesticated, like very different area. So I think I will want to pull them out of it.
And before we move on to the final question, Mr. Fernando, in your perspective, what do you think are the most pressing issues that the youth in Sri Lanka face right now?
Number one is unemployment. Number two is the drug menace that the youth have got caught into. Number three, I would say education, how the education has been, the system of education. I keep talking about it because this has to change. Why I say that is we have, as I said, 600,000 sit for O-levels, 200,000 A-levels, and only 25,000 go into higher education or to the universities. Out of that, over 90% come out of with art degrees. So the system is wrong. So we don't have the the supply for the demand we have. Let's say the digitalization, the digital degrees or the IT degrees in Sri Lanka, only 1,000 people come out for a year, but the requirement is quite more. So the focuses have to change. I think unemployment also, people are lots are moving out of the country for work, and they're not skilled. It's unskilled employment. So what we should do is a vocational training on. Sri Lanka has some best labor, and then Middle East was flooded with Sri Lankan laborers, but now they're cutting out because they're now moving to more skilled education, English knowledge. So Philippines come through. So there are so many things. Even call center Sri Lankans speak better language than the Indians, and even though they speak English, they have an accent issue. So foreign companies may not prefer. So we have a great opportunity. So the youth are facing a problem where the politicians haven't focused on them, but they only use them for elections, promising them government jobs. Thinking has to change. So I would say the biggest issue that the youth are facing is unemployment and lack of opportunities, and also when you're in a place that you are vulnerable, it's easy for you to get into different addictions. So those are the challenges I think the youths are facing. So a country should really focus on the youth because that would be the future, and you need to plan ahead 10 years and start a campaign for them, and a campaign which will support them and will guide them through, because as I said, 17, 18 is where your hormones change. You're bigger all of a sudden than your mother and father, and then you start thinking what you need to do. So it's a very vulnerable age group. So Sri Lankans politicians need to do a lot more for the youth, because the youth unrest happens when they are unemployed and they do not have a clear vision of their future. I mean, a child should by 16 know what he wants to be. I mean, I didn't know I will be a politician, but that happened very luckily. But I think children should be able to think what he wants to be, and the government should make available those opportunities for those children.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And finally, as a young member of parliament and as a young leader, what would you like to do for the people in your country? What would you like to contribute?
Basically, as I said again, I am trying to champion two causes. That would be the health and education. As I said, I went through this, and I first thought while I was in the ICU, few days. I mean, it's just the ceiling and me, and I was just wondering what if this happened to my driver or my staff. How hard would it be? Yeah, for me, I found out next day I had an insurance, went into the private hospital in Sri Lanka and got it done. But I mean, there's so many people. Just to do an angiogram, just to check how many blocks you have to stay in a hospital list for about 6 months. And that's very unfortunate. And I thought systems can change. Like abroad, every person, even if this cameraman works temporary, he could have a social security number, which for every work he does, his insurance get paid. I mean, when we even hire them on contract basis, that could be the easiest way to develop the country on health. And these are things that I'm having in my mind. I would say even a private hospital could be semi-government, like in semi-government schools. I went to St. Joseph's College, it's a semi-government school. Standards are better than a government school. So like that, even the government hospitals can not be like Navaloka or Delns, but they can compete with them equally if they have been paid also. Free medical, free health has to change. The concept has to change. At that point, it's different. The country is now moving in a very different avenue, and also the education, as I said, the youth unrest, etc., has to be done. So I am quite hopeful I would be able to achieve it. I don't think that I want a government to do it. I would like to see Sri Lanka for the next 10 years. This is my personal opinion. Lots of people might not agree in my party. I would say Sri Lanka needs all parties to get together, at least for 10 years, set a policy, and get Sri Lanka out of this rut we are in. That's very essential. Investors are not coming in. We have such a beautiful country on tourism. I mean, we are in a hub. We have the port, and the airport could be developed much better. So we need all parties to sit together. 73 years, all parties have ruined this country. So it's up to us at least now to sit down and say, no, enough is enough. We'll form this party. We'll have JP. We'll have UMP. We'll have a representation on it. And for 10 years, so then, I mean, no party can pull you out, create unrest, I mean, the country also, as I say, 225 members of parliament is elected by the 15 million people in Sri Lanka, the voters. So you can't just simply blame the people who are in parliament, but who voted in has to be blamed as well. So the country has to think differently, and we should get all the parties. We should now focus and pressure people. Should get onto the road to say we need the country first, then politics. So I think if all parties can come together, sit, sign up for 10 years, and then get the country, set KPIs. What would you do on the ports? What would you do on the aviation? How would you develop Sri Lanka in tourism? How would we, get our agriculture growing? So all this, we need to have a proper policy, and the best way to do it is now we are all in a mess. I mean, even if governments change, it's not going to be easy for them to take us out of this route. I feel that we will do better, but I would say it is a huge challenge. So I mean, only option for us to do right now is set party politics aside, get together, and do something much. I mean, I'm selfish if I say that my government can do it. So I would like to see all of us getting together at least for 10 years, and then let's start doing politics. I mean, there should not be big positions, only 30 members in a cabinet, strict KPIs. You do not, I mean, for at least 5 years, all politicians have to sacrifice of their salary or fuel, whatever. And I always believe my policy is that if we are called honorable, we are not doing an honorary service. And I think this concept has to change. I mean, if we are to be honorable as an honorary service, we should not take any remuneration from the government and make it a cost. If politicians are willing to do that, I think the country will come out fast. Very far-fetched, but that's my policy of getting Sri Lanka out if I was in a position.
All right, that's interesting perspectives, and that's your vision for Sri Lanka. Thank you so much for this conversation, and I wish you all the best for your future endeavors. We have come to the end of this conversation. I do believe you found it interesting. Do stay tuned for the next episode, which will be up soon. Until then, stay safe and take care.